Hello.
Yo.
Welcome to Infused and Confused.
Hey, let's get cooking.
So today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently than normal. I'm not actually making any food today. I'm making drinks only. So I brought some fruit so that people could still have some food if they wanted some. But I'm making tea, coffee, lemonade, and juice.
All infused.
All infused, yeah. All infused differently is my goal. I wanted to show different ways that you can infuse drinks.
So it's not just, I thought it was just one way. Take
No,
the tincture,
there's-
drop it in, I got me infused drink.
No, that's definitely like how I medicate most days. That's like my primary way of medicating is with tincture, but it's definitely not the only way.
Oh, okay, cool. So let's learn something.
Yeah. So, let's see. I'm gonna start off with the tea. So at home, I usually do loose tea now, because I make it myself. But just for the purposes of the show and for the ease and like less stuff to clean up, I brought bag tea. So this one is Stress Less by Lipton. Its ingredients are cinnamon, chamomile, and lavender. So really good if you're trying to like calm down. And then Passion by, I think you pronounce it Tazo, but this is definitely one of my favorite brands of bag tea. So if you just don't have the patience or time to do loose tea and can't afford it from like the really expensive shops, this is a really good company. So it has hibiscus, licorice root, orange peel, cinnamon, rose hips, lemongrass. It's sweetened with juice extract, so really solid ingredients.
So when you make your own tea bags, because
Right.
you're at your table, you make the tea bags.
Right.
Do you use any of those things that you just read off?
So the one that I usually have like with me when I have a table set up is a nutritive blend. So it usually has stinging nettle, which doesn't actually sting you if you're
I
drinking
was about
it.
to stinging nettle. What?
Once it dries, it's no longer stinging.
Okay.
But it's really good for you. So it has that and lemon balm and echinacea and calendula and chamomile, like chamomile flowers instead of like chamomile leaf.
Then that's your tea, right?
Right, and that's my tea, yep.
Okay.
So I didn't bring that one because I really wanted to show flavoring the tea, and these have a better like natural flavor. So I am going to be infusing this two ways. So one is with tincture, because I find that to be pretty, or actually one is with the roots, and then one is with the syrup. That's how I'm doing it. So these are cannabis roots.
Oh, okay. I was about to say root of what?
Yeah, cannabis roots. So these actually are from my harvest that I just harvested last week. I dried them in the sun because I just find that to be like one of the easier ways to do that with the roots. It gets a little complicated inside. You can do it in a paper bag though. That's a thing.
Wait, huh?
A paper bag.
Wow. What?
So that's actually like one of the ways that people used to like dry cannabis, like for like especially in like the 70s and 80s, like when they grow at home, it was pretty standard that you just use like a paper bag to dry. But that's super common practice for herbs, is that you just put them in a paper bag and close the
Close
lid.
it and just let it sit.
Yeah, because it controls the humidity, and I don't really know exactly all the details, but I just know that it works well in a paper bag.
Science.
Yeah, science. So, cannabis roots are not going to get you high. So they're not psychoactive. They don't have any of the resin or, and I don't think you could even find THC on these at all. But there's lots of other health benefits. So whatever terp profile is in your plant is going to also be in the roots. So that's a big benefit.
Even after it's being dried.
Correct.
Ah, okay.
Yep. Also, it has some of the other cannabinoids like CBG in them. But back in the day, people used to use cannabis root tea frequently as medicine, especially for skin problems. Like they would make a paste from it. But if you look at some of the old literature about like cannabis medicine, remember me telling you about the Chinese herbalist book that was the first written record of cannabis. So in that book, they actually mention cannabis root specifically as a paste for pain and skin problems. So it's been used for a really long time. It's like I said, its medicinal effects are very mild, like if any, you know what I mean? Like it's more of a nutrition thing than a medical use thing. If that makes sense.
Is it a proven method?
It is a proven method. Yeah, there's actually like Herb has a really good article about it. So if you just Google cannabis root tea, it's usually like the first one that comes up.
My bad. I meant the paste. Like that would be cool though.
Yeah, so I've actually never made the paste,
Okay.
but it's on my like list of things to try at some point. So I've got both teas and the roots in this hot water. I'm just going to let this sit here and steep for about 10 minutes before I do anything else to it. But I'm going to sweeten it with this infused syrup. So this is equal parts 100% maple syrup, raw honey, and brown sugar.
Okay.
And it's infused with tincture that's like boiled down. So
it'll work.
Right. No, it's the ones that I used on pancakes when we did breakfast for dinner.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. So that's what I'm going to infuse that with. And then, let's see.
So you see what I do?
I'm going to go ahead and start some coffee while that's brewing.
Infused coffee.
Yeah, that's actually, I start my day with infused coffee. Like, before I'm even remotely functional, I am downstairs brewing coffee to infuse.
Is that hot or iced?
Well, it depends. It's been so freaking hot. If I could keep ice cold here, this would all be on ice. But I couldn't keep it cold.
I mean, 'cause how do you regulate the temperature of coffee? Because if you add, like, if you put it in the coffee, I know coffee's not 200 degrees, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it won't go over 200, so you're not burning, I guess, the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't go to a high enough temp to do anything other than evaporate the alcohol. So that's because I use Everclear tinctures. That's they do have alcohol in them, obviously, but in hot beverages, the heat actually
Never hot enough to.
It never has enough to like affect the THC. That's
Yeah,
just
that's
if
what I
you
was trying
see
to talk
this
about,
on the
THC,
screen, by the way, it's just water. It's just water that got on the plate. But yeah, it's never has enough to like affect the
Your THC
amount of THC or CBD at all.
Right.
So these are my 2 tinctures. These are my personal bottles actually, and this is when people ask me what I use. This is what I use. I use this and I use topical balm, and that's it.
She got pain, and she has, what's that other one?
Anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah, so mixing the 2 together isn't usually a good idea, like in the same sitting. It just causes too many, what's the word? Like the side effects just don't blend well together because this one is for pain and this one is for anxiety. And so one is kind of meant to like mellow you out and the other one is meant to mellow out your mood, but make sure you're awake. And so the 2 just don't go well together. So what I do is I wake up in the morning, I make coffee, I use my pain tincture, which is what I'm about to do when this is done. And then 2 hours later, I use my anxiety tincture. And then 2 hours later, I use my pain tincture. And so that's my routine every day.
I want to be like you when I grow up, I promise.
Well, it's better than the alternative for me, which was opiates every 2 hours and benzos every couple hours.
Yeah,
and so it's a good alternative for me from what I was doing. But yeah, the anxiety one specifically I wanted to bring on to talk about because I think that I have a lot of people that use it and that I have made it for. But people aren't really super open about mental health, especially in the cannabis community. It's something that like a lot of people, I think, I'm trying to think of the word. They stigmatize and then they downplay like how bad it is, and that's pretty common in society in general. Is like downplaying your disease.
When you have the 2 different types of what they want to say cannabis, your recreational and your medical.
Right.
To me personally, ain't no such thing as recreational cannabis. You're using it for a reason. I don't care what you say.
I agree. Like I personally agree. I think there's people that only want to smoke with their friends, or they only want to, smoke what they think is recreationally. But I honestly, usually, if you get to the root of it, most people are treating something else, even if they don't admit it.
Shit, might not even know it for real.
Well, and that's the other thing. When you're dealing with mental illness, which is one of the problems, is that you're sick. And so there's a lot of times where you might be exhibiting symptoms that you're not getting better, or that you're spiraling, or that you're really getting too close to be to a really bad place, and you don't even recognize that because you're sick. So there's a lot of people who don't notice those symptoms in themselves until it's really bad. And so I think that we, especially if we're working with people that are talking to us about their personal lives and things that they're going through, I just think we really need to be more responsible as a community with how we approach those patients. I think that it's really common to tell people, oh, well, you don't need antidepressants, you just need to smoke this, or you just need to use that. And I just think that's really, number one, if you're not a doctor or a psychiatrist, you should never be telling people what medications they should or shouldn't take, first of all, like across the board. It also opens you up to a lawsuit in case nobody's ever like realized that.
Law school.
Right.
Welcome to law
Well, I mean,
school.
think about it, because if somebody, like, for example, like, we would never think of, like, telling somebody who was diabetic and required insulin, like, we would never think about telling that person not to take insulin, because, like, imagine if they believed you and you presented yourself as an expert in that subject, and then they don't take it and they die or end up in the hospital. Like, you know what I mean?
Just
It's
'cause-
some way you're responsible for what, I mean, people are responsible for the choices that they make,
I was
but
about
if
to give
you're,
you that one. That's what I was going to throw back at
but
you.
if you're giving people advice and pretending to be an expert, you should either not speak on things you don't actually know about, or just be very cautious with how you talk to people. So that's, you know.
I mean, but like you said, at the end of the day, everybody can make their own decisions. All day, I can sit up here and tell you, hey, nah, don't take your Zoloft or whatever you're going to take. Here, hit this J with me. You'll be all right. And then 2-3 hours later, you went and shot up your office because your boss pissed you off. Whole time, you just take your pill. Like,
I don't know if it really works like that.
oh, my fault. I'm sorry.
But I hear you. Yeah, I don't know if it goes all that far, but for most people anyway, I think there's a lot more than Zoloft that would have to be on that person. But, you know, we just also have to, like, not stigmatize people for their choices, and that's the big thing. So, like, if somebody's tried an antidepressant and it didn't work for them, that's fine. That's their life and their choices. But if somebody else says, no, I need my meds, then, like, trying to, like, dissuade them from that is just unethical in every possible way, in my opinion.
Like, you're doing a job of a doctor and you're not a doctor. Don't
Right.
say
Well,
that.
I'm really open about, like, my mental health struggles, and, like, I flatly admit that, like, if I don't have my SSRI, like, it's really a dangerous place for me. Like, I'd probably end up being in the hospital. It's not good. And, you know, my whole work and everything that I do is about, like, finding natural treatments for people. So if I believe so strongly in cannabis and natural medicine, and I say, yeah, but there's still this thing that I need, and then people judge me for that. I mean, I don't really care if people judge me. It's more about other people who maybe don't tell people about their problems, but they hear those conversations and they hear that shame and that stigma, and it's really unfair. And something like 60% of the people in the US with mental illness are untreated or don't regularly seek treatment. And that's not okay. That's not okay that we have a system that doesn't help people, and it's not okay that a lot of people feel so stigmatized that they can't ask for help. And so,
I mean, and you got some people who feel like the system just don't work. I'm gonna go see a doctor because, you know, I'm sad or whatever, and the only thing he gonna do is pump me full of pills. All he gonna do is write me the subscription real quick. Oh, what if I don't want that?
well, and that's your choice, but, you know, what if you just needed to talk to a therapist? And you didn't go talk to a therapist because everybody's told you that therapists are crap, or, you know, they're not going to help you, or, you know, they don't care about you at all, you know, or whatever. So if people have been telling you that, or you've had a bad experience with one, that's what I mean about, like, we need more, like, community resources for people and community support for people and community outreach for people, so that they know that there's people that care about them, that really just want to help them without any motives attached to that.
Just thought about something, right?
Right.
You know, you sit around with your friends, you smoke, and you open up, right?
Right.
Do you think it could ever be a such thing as like a cannabis psychologist, a cannabis therapist?
So there's a few that actually do that.
Oh, it's already done? Oh,
Yeah,
man.
there's a few in some of the more legal states that
Okay.
are very pro cannabis, and I support that wholeheartedly. I wish we had that in DC.
be
Unfortunately, most therapists in DC don't even take insurance. I'm still trying to figure out exactly why that is, but there's a good portion of therapists in DC that don't accept insurance. They give you a receipt to get reimbursed from your insurance company. And I know a whole lot of people, like myself included, who don't have like $200 a session to just go hand somebody once a week or whatever. You know what I mean? And then wait on your insurance company to reimburse you back, assuming you have insurance at all. So, I mean, you got that kind of money sitting around to go talk to somebody? Because I
mean,
don't.
If you know a therapist take an 8 for an hour, like,
Right.
I'll let you real quick.
Right, exactly.
What are we doing? We got
So I've got the
over
tea
here.
that I'm pouring in here. I've got the coffee ready right there.
Okay. So it's already been rooted and
Right, so it's non-activated. Like I said, it's not, you know, it's not decarbed. This is mostly for the other things that are in it besides the cannabinoids like THC and CBD. There's other
like-
good
like,
things in
what'd you
plants,
say? You
people.
said THC. No, you said CBD.
I actually had a graphic with a whole list of all the good things that are in cannabis roots, but I got really high before I left and forgot to email it to Listen Vision.
Good
So
job and bad job at the same
I'll
time.
post it on Instagram later on this evening.
Yay.
So I've got 4 cups of tea, and I'm just going to split the syrup between the 4 of them.
Cannabis syrup inserted. Now it's activated, right?
Right. Well, this was already activated.
I mean, yeah, the syrup.
Because it was already like decarbed and all that stuff before it went in. This one might have a little bit more than the other three. Something else you can do is infuse honey. It's not something that I have a whole lot of experience with. I'm more about infusing things with tincture, sugar, infused sugar, whatever. But I know somebody here has infused honey. Productive Potheads has infused honey. I brought honey for the tea if somebody would like honey in their tea. But yeah, I've also seen like CBD honey sticks. Those are really cool. Somebody had those when I was on vacation recently, and I thought those were pretty neat.
So now that you've infused the tea, right?
Right.
Does it work the same way as the edible? Take about 20 minutes and...
This one, with the syrup, it usually takes about 45 minutes.
Okay.
It's pretty low dose, like all of them. Although, I don't know, I feel like they're pretty low dose, but maybe my tolerance has just gone up. Because people come in and they, like, swear that they got high off whatever. Like, last week, that curry, I had 3 different people tell me they were high, and I...
Hey, that curry was bomb last week. Y'all missed that. Y'all should not have missed that, but y'all missed that. Yeah, what you had? 3 different kinds up here?
Yeah, it was 3 different kinds of curry. Sure was.
It was fire.
Yep.
And while I got you over there, can you pass me that nice little rig over there?
Sure can. But another thing is that sometimes people just have flat out misinformation about cannabis and how it affects mental health, and that's another thing that irritates me. Like CBD, for example, is really great for anxiety. Like, there's studies that show that. But, like, CBD isn't necessarily good for schizophrenia, and there's no studies that support that. CBD isn't necessarily good for bipolar, and there's no studies that support that. So, if you give people information about what is going to be good for their health, especially their mental health, make sure it's accurate information. Because a lot of times it's like people hear things. Like, somebody's going to be listening in on the show, right? And they're going to hear me talking about something. And they're going to go on Facebook, and they're going to be in a conversation, and they're going to use whatever I said as fact without doing any of their own research.
That's what I was going to do.
Right, but you shouldn't do that. If you want to know, like, I can sit up here all the long day, but I don't have no problem providing sources for any of the stuff that I talk about. But reach out to me, ask me to send you studies. Like, don't just assume that something that you hear somebody say, even if it's on video or at an event or at a conference or whatever, is guaranteed to be accurate just because somebody else said it.
Including a doctor?
Well, and doctor, I would want to know what kind of doctor they were, like what was their medicine, like, because you know what I mean? Like, if you've been like a podiatrist, I don't really know how you would have any information about cannabis and like PTSD. Like, you're a podiatrist, you've worked on feet your whole life, you know what I mean? So,
Hey Pete, I got a legit question.
what?
So I know, like in a school they tell you that a reliable source of information would be like something like the Harvard Business, the Business Journal, something like that.
I know what you're talking about.
So, in terms of cannabis, what would be those institutions that will give you that will look for correct information?
So that's a really hard question. The question is so like in school you were taught, like, if you're looking up something and like if you look up a study by the Harvard like business school or something, that's like a reputable source to go on. So how do you know what a reputable source is? Well, it depends. And you really have to read the studies yourself, because like there's studies, hell, I've made mistakes where I've pulled up a study that I got super called out on because I was like, yeah, this proves my point. Here you go, link to the study, because I briefly read through it. There was only 3 people involved in the study, and there was no control. So, like, how accurate you can call that study is, like, not.
I'm going to make it say what I wanted to say.
Peer-reviewed, that's an important thing. Make sure it's peer-reviewed. Actually read the study and make sure that it has good sourcing, that it was with a large number of people over a period of time. Like, testing a study of how something works for a week is not the same as how something worked over like a 5-year period or a 10-year period. And so like there's a lot of factors that go into it, but if you really want to get down to it, you could probably almost find a study to support whatever crazy opinion you have on anything. But it's a matter of like knowing the source of the study and how the study was conducted, and that, so just being able to like find information, I think, is more important than even knowing information. You know what I mean? Because nobody's going to know everything. True. So if you know how to look up the information that you need, then you know,
It's
there's
always
a higher
best to-
benefit to that.
Yeah, always best to research for yourself anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Any and everything. Just because somebody, like she said, if somebody tell you something, it don't make it true.
Well, I mean, I hear stories all the time from people who go to like medical dispensaries and their like bud tender knows less than they do.
And that's fun.
And that's like not, that shouldn't be that way. You know what I mean? Like there should be no way that but that, you know, what do they expect if they're paying people like minimum wage? So, you know what I mean? Like if they want people to go and get trained and educated and whatever, that's great, but they should like compensate them for a higher skill, in my opinion.
I mean,
it's my little rant.
I look at it the other way though. Like you entered this industry knowing what you wanted to do and all that, and you're not educating yourself on your product or what you're selling.
Well, educating yourself on the product that you're trying to sell and knowing the ins and outs of like every kind of condition and what would be good for those conditions only within the context of what you have to sell is like really limiting. So, I mean, there's times where I've had, you know, say 2 tinctures and somebody's asked me, well, which one's better for this? And I've said neither. You know what I mean? Like, so it's being able to like, but if somebody's job is to sell you something, then their job is to find a way to make the products in that store sell. Like I could be totally wrong, but I don't know many dispensaries who are like, oh no, we don't have that, but go to this dispensary. They probably do.
Yeah, true.
And that's what I mean about like it's like a conflict when you've got people that need medicine and people not giving information that's correct. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves. So I usually do a fresh like green smoothie, but I didn't want to bring the blender and all the ingredients for that. So just picked up one of these. This is an Odwalla Superfood green smoothie. Naked also makes one. I didn't get the Naked one because I'm allergic to kiwi, and it has kiwi in that. But it's like 100% juice and like really good stuff in it. It's got spirulina, kale, banana, mango, peach, apples, Jerusalem artichoke, barley grass, wheatgrass, wheat sprouts. So all sorts of good stuff. Actually, I can't even drink this. I just realized.
Why?
Because it has wheat in it. All right, well, y'all can drink it. So I haven't bought one of these in a while because I usually make my own.
I'm a big 5-year-old. I'm not drinking. It's green.
It's
Like,
delicious, I promise.
Green. It's green.
Green.
Huh?
You're scared of something that's green?
If it's green, I'll smoke it. Like, I won't drink it though.
You're going to try it.
Yeah, she bullying me over there.
Nobody cares, okay? No, it actually tastes really good. It pretty much just tastes like fruit. It doesn't taste like anything
I've
weird.
had one before. It's cool.
So I'm gonna do 2 of them with tincture, and I'm gonna do 3 of them with CBD oil.
CBD.
This is infused coconut oil with a CBD flower that we grew here in DC. It tested 18% CBD, 1.07% THC. So this is mostly CBD. It's shouldn't get you high at all. But I'm gonna use that one in these. But infused coconut oil is not something a lot of people think you can add to drinks, but you can. I do it a lot.
Does it change the flavor?
Yeah, a little bit, but not like enough for you to be super noticeable. I'm actually gonna use it in all 5. I'm gonna use that tincture and that one up there. I think that it was I didn't have any butter at home, or I would have brought that. But one of my favorite things to do during the winter is to make an infused, like really nice coffee, like a mocha coffee or something, or like a hot chocolate, and instead of infusing with tincture, I use butter. Like I just use like, infused butter, and just put like a tiny amount, like, half teaspoon or 1/4 teaspoon or whatever. But I swear the like flavor with the like milk and the hot chocolate and all that, it's delicious. And if you haven't tried it, you're like seriously missing out.
I know who I'm chasing around for Thanksgiving.
Well, maybe I had a whole sweet potato pie last year that I had to throw out. I was so upset. Yeah, long story, but like we were doing a raffle for it. We were gonna give like 100% of the proceeds to a charity, and then we had to like.
It was on Instagram.
Then we got told halfway through the raffle that like we had to stop doing the raffle. That wasn't allowed. So anyway, long story short, the pie got left out when I got home, and I ended up having to like throw the whole thing away. It was terrible. I was so upset. But yeah, sweet potato pie is like my favorite thing to do on Thanksgiving.
I remember that. It was a little contest on IG, right?
Yep.
Yep, you and Ron. I remember that.
Yep.
We got us the green drink infused with the CBD. I'm not drinking. No.
And then we're gonna do.
Drinking this.
Yes, you are. And then we're gonna do lemonade. Can you hand me that lemonade?
Hey, that smells good.
Right. It's just fruit basically. That's all you're gonna taste is fruit.
That's horrible. No, that's good.
It's good, right? Yeah, exactly. And it's super good for you. And I used to drink one every day, so there you go.
Nutritious and delicious.
But yeah, I guess it's been that long since I bought one that I didn't even realize that like I couldn't have it. Great. Thank you, Odwalla. I appreciate it.
Shouts out.
Sneaking weed into it. So this is just simply lemonade. If you've never bought this before, this is like really good. It's definitely like the best store-bought lemonade in my opinion, for sure. I usually make lemonade. I always have like a big like 2-gallon pitcher in my fridge of lemonade because I make it with stevia at home, so it doesn't have all the sugar in it.
Refrigerator like you got everything in your refrigerator.
I do. We need another fridge really bad.
What?
I'm basically always running out of fridge space. That's why that electric cooler is so cool because then it like doesn't use up tons of fridge space. So this is a Bubba Cookies tincture. So it is made with
that color pretty.
Yeah, this one does turn out pretty interesting. This one was really light. It is extracted with Everclear. What some people I think that you get the same effect from like a concentrate or an edible when you use tincture, but that's not true.
Oh, because that was my not understanding. That was actually what I thought for real.
Nope, you get the same effects that you would get from smoking it without smoking it, and it lasts a little bit longer. So unlike an edible, like chocolate, for example, in my experience, and there's going to be people who comment, I'm sure, and tell me that I'm wrong. In my experience, it does not matter if you use a sativa or an indica with an edible, like with oil or butter. It tends to affect you the same way and give you an intense body high. What does tend to differ, in my experience, is how bad you get the munchies, if you get the munchies at all, and how long it takes for them to kick in. I find the sativa ones take a little bit longer to kick in than the indica ones, but otherwise the effects are almost always the same. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you get high on edibles. So like you know how usually you get high on an edible, it's that full body high, right? Like you don't usually get that sativa buzzy right. With tincture, if it's a sativa tincture, you are going to get sativa effects. If it is a hybrid tincture, you're going to get hybrid effects. So it's basically the exact same like in your body as far as like the way that it works with your body as the flower without smoking it.
It sounds like it magnifies it. That's what it sounds like.
Right. So to me, that's how it does. So to me, it magnifies it and it lasts a little longer than smoking would. But it takes about the same amount of time, in my opinion. Like smoking sometimes kicks in right away.
I was about to say how.
But it tends to but I've smoked things that take up to like 15 minutes for you to be like, oh yeah, I'm really high. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay. All
right. So like to me, tincture takes about 15 to 20 minutes for you to be like, oh, okay.
It works.
And depending on how you dose it, makes a difference. So.
You made the coffee already?
Yep, coffee's over there too.
That's what I get for paying attention.
This was super fast. Way faster than I expected it to be. So I'll show some of the other stuff that I brought. I brought infused sugar. Have you ever used this before?
Yes, and I'm dying to learn how to make it.
It's super easy. I can give you the recipe right now. Get a pen.
All right, hold on. I got my phone. I can text it to myself.
Text it to yourself. There you go. All right. If everybody's ready to write down this, because people ask me all the time about how to make infused sugar. It's really easy. There's nothing simple to it. Anybody that won't tell you their methods for doing something is sketch, in my opinion. Sorry, like most of us didn't invent the wheel. We just happened to learn something along the way and found a way for it to work for us. Like, the only thing that I won't give people flat out is I don't give people the ratios for the herbs in my topical balm, but I tell them every herb that's in it. So I just don't give them the ratio because that's like my proprietary thing about it. But I still tell you everything that's in it and pretty much exactly how to make it. So, because most of these things can be found out by Google. So anyway.
I want Princess P recipe.
Infused sugar. 2-part sugar. 1-part tincture.
1-part tincture.
Turn your oven on to the lowest setting. My oven's 170. Some people it's a little bit lower or maybe a couple degrees higher, but for me it's 170. That's about average. So turn your oven down to the lowest setting. Stir the tincture and the sugar together. Put it in the oven. Set your alarm for 20 minutes. Come in, stir it up, and keep doing that every 20 minutes for 2 to 3 hours or until there's no more liquid left in the sugar. And basically what you're left with is like FICO sugar essentially because you've boiled off or you've cooked off all the alcohol, and the only thing that's left is the full extract binding
Now,
to the sugar.
I've seen that. Okay, so I've seen on YouTube, right? I've seen it baked before, and they pick up a sheet and knock it off. Is that
Yeah. So basically, I just do it in a glass pan, but you can do it in a sheet pan or whatever. But yeah, you basically just put it in your oven, and every 20 minutes you stir it up, and then you put it back in, and then you stir it up. Like, that's basically all you do. I don't actually like this taste of it by itself, but some people do. You're welcome to.
She doesn't like the taste of it, but she grabbed a spoon and just was here.
Yep. But I don't like the taste of cannabis. I'm a weirdo, and I don't like the taste of cannabis in anything. In my
That's good
opinion, if I
sugar.
can super taste
It's
it, I don't want it. Huh?
You don't like the taste of cannabis.
I know.
What?
I can't help it. Like, if I eat an edible and it just tastes like straight tree, I'm like,
Yeah.
nope, not for me. Put it down.
I gotta follow you up.
Do my chocolates taste like straight tree?
No.
Exactly. But they still get you high, don't they?
Very much so.
Exactly. So, yeah, my goal is to use full extract from the plant as naturally as I can without it tasting like tree. So it's not bad, but to me it just has a little bit too much of a tree taste. You can add it to whatever you're going to add sugar to. I find that putting it in, we tried to make cornbread with it one time, right? Like we have this homemade cornbread recipe and like a cast iron and like the whole nine, and we were like, we're going to make infused cornbread with the sugar instead of using regular sugar, right?
Won't work.
It was a real bad idea because it basically just tasted like weed. Like the whole thing it was terrible. Like I think we ended up giving some of it to the dog, and and then we ended up like getting rid of a lot of it because it was just bad. Like Big Worm was trying so hard to eat it too. He was like smothering butter all over it, like trying
take the
so
taste
hard
away.
to like because it was
Because
terrible.
cornbread is like, that's a bland taste, and if you change literally that recipe,
Right, there's nothing to like cover up the taste at all, and so it's just basically like straight tree. It was terrible. The texture was great. It was all good for that part, but it was just. So I don't recommend doing that, but I know people that have done it. I know a lot of people that just get infused sugar and put it in their like coffee or tea, which is totally fine. I use it for gummies.
I want to make Kool-Aid with it.
Oh, I mean, I think I know somebody that does that. Maybe.
Maybe. Uh-oh. Hey, Kool-Aid person, come here.
The girl who makes the bath bombs. I don't remember her name, but there's a girl that makes bath bombs, and I feel like she also had Kool-Aid, but I forgot her name. Anyway. But I use the sugar to make gummies. So a lot of people use either distillate or tincture to make gummies. And I just use the infused sugar because I found that it's the best as far as taste and texture for my like ones that I've done. Like I've tasted other people's, it tasted fine, but I was never able to get that result until I did the sugar.
The sugar. Okay.
Yeah, when I did it with tincture, it didn't taste good. I always test everything before I like make to share. You know what I mean? To like.
You mean on yourself?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily infused. Well, first I do it uninfused. Like if I have a new recipe. So for example, I found a new brownie recipe, right?
Right.
So this last weekend I made it from scratch for just like my house, not infused. Just because like I'm not gonna waste the oil or the butter if it turns out that recipe is garbage. So I just make it without. And then after it turned out they were pretty good. So I'm gonna make it infused next time. But before I share it with anybody, like I'm gonna have like. We call it quality control, but like, but yeah, basically I test it out, or I hand it to you, or I give it to somebody else and be like, here, let me know how this works for you. So.
I did not know I was a research monkey.
Yeah, you did. You've offered
You're
to be
right,
my
I
guinea
did.
pig so many
Hell yeah.
times.
Taste this. Okay. Shit, give it.
Yep. So, yeah, I think that's all I brought today for.
You got rooted coffee.
For infusing stuff. Yeah, I just wanted to like, I wish, is there a live feed? Is there anybody in the chat or anything?
No.
Is it live? Can we go to a quick break? Be right back. sorry about that quick break. I just wanted to make sure that I had the chat so that I could see what people were asking or saying. And hi to everybody that's watching. So I'm trying to think of where we left off. Bobby will be up here, or Stoner will be up here any minute. So yeah, we were talking about mental health in the cannabis community. I think generally it's a bad idea. Let's just recap that a little bit. It's a really bad idea to give people advice that you are not an expert in giving people advice for. And this goes beyond like just not being good ethics. I also just like, I think that I just have a problem with people that do that at like from a human standpoint. Like, where's the compassion for people and like what they're going through? Do you know what I'm saying? Like somebody, and I'm not gonna even like talk about who or anything, but somebody posted something about like feeling like they were feeling suicidal or really low or something, and somebody essentially was like, well, you're an asshole, so big shocker.
Wow.
Yeah, like, and I was just like, what the hell? Like, this is like, that's not how you talk to people. I don't care if somebody is like the worst like asshole ever. If like nobody deserves to die, that's not like
you ain't gotta like the person,
right? You just don't respond at all. Like, you know, like that's what I don't understand. Like, if you have like, and I'm not like nice 100% of the time, but I would never be mean to somebody about something serious like that. But so recapping, yeah, so it's don't give people advice on things that you don't actually know. Be compassionate with people. If they tell you that they're having a hard time, sorry that I'm shoving my face, by the way, refer them to the local behavioral health department. They're like, DC has a really good program in place. It's just a matter of like getting down there and getting in, but at least the program exists. If somebody tells you that they're suicidal, refer them to the suicide hotline. Like, it's just really important to like have compassion, but also like lead people in the correct direction. You know what I mean?
I mean, my favorite part you said was research. Like, research anything. Like,
right.
Like, research, and don't fucking shame nobody. Like,
exactly.
for their choices. Please don't.
Exactly.
Because the same way you do that shit, oh, I don't like how you, it could be flipped around on you. I don't like how you do shit. So, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Let people do what they do.
Right. And it's not a one size fits all. And that's the other thing. Like, nothing to do with mental health is one size fits all. And it can vary so much person to person, and even in a single person, what their needs are and what their symptoms are can vary all the time. So like, what worked for me 5 years ago doesn't necessarily work for me now. So if somebody says, hey, I've been doing this and it was really working for me, but now it's really not, like, especially when it comes to medication, don't sit there and be like, oh, that's because psych meds don't work, because people say that kind of stuff a lot, and it's really harmful to tell people that. Just be like, oh, you should talk to your doctor about that, and just be done with it. You know what I mean? Like, you can make suggestions for people. Like, there are definitely certain strains. Leafly has a really good, like, wheel. Have you seen that wheel?
I love the Leafly wheel.
Yeah, Leafly has a big wheel that shows what strains are good for what conditions. You can Google it and just, like, look at the images. And that's really beneficial, so that whenever you're looking for something, you can kind of do your own research on knowing what might work for you. Talking to people who have more experience is great. Reaching out to people and asking for advice is great. But from the consumer end and the patient end, it is important that you do your own research. Don't trust something just because somebody told you that. As we can see with these pesticide results coming out of the Maryland medical program, you can't always trust what people tell you is
the best
happening in your meds. So, yeah. For anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, you can Google it. It's in the Baltimore Sun. There's an investigation underway with a cultivator in Maryland that was caught using pesticides, and there's a lot of people who have come out and said that those products made them really sick. So, yeah.
Which one prompted? Did the people come out first and say they were sick, or did he get caught first and then they came
I think that they got caught first, and then people came out and said like that they had gotten sick, or dispensaries I think may have been the ones that reported them, even because there was a couple of dispensaries that stopped carrying their products because it had had so many returns from people getting sick.
Oh, okay, so.
Yeah, so, you know, unfortunately, just like in the pharmaceutical industry, and people love to say cannabis is different, but unfortunately in the industry, green market and legal market, there's a lot of people that they don't really care about your best interest at all, and they don't know you, and they don't know your experience, and what they care about is the bottom line, and because it's a business, and I understand that. However, that's why I say it's important as the consumer to do your own research, and have some idea of the things that you might need, there's a lot of really good information that's free. You just have to look. There's a lot of people that I know will give really good advice. Physician for the People is one that, you know, he does a lot, and you can look at his Instagram and learn a whole lot. Yeah, so, you know, it's doing your own research and kind of having like an understanding of what you need for yourself, but also taking what people say into account with like what their experiences, what their motives might be, what have other people said about them. I find other people's opinions of people to actually be more valid than what somebody tries to sell me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Like,
I think that like your character speaks for yourself through your customer base and or patients. So, you know, I mean, that's just kind of how I feel about it. But yeah, so if anybody has any questions, you can ask in the chat. There's a few people watching. But
no questions just yet.
Nope.
All right, so with you infusing like all these stuff, right? Coffees, teas, juices. What was, or do you even remember the first thing you ever infused?
Ever? Like the first?
I'm gonna do this, and then you just went and did it.
Brownies.
Classic, everybody's first try brownies.
Yeah, well, it was gluten-free brownies. It was because, so actually, funny story. So, when I first started using cannabis medicinally about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I would come up to DC. That was what I did. This was, you know, back in early 2016, and very different scene than it is now. And I would come up and get edibles because I found that the first time I ever had them, which I have no problem with giving a shout out to Sweet Sensations, Nita Nichols. Like, I haven't, like, she was one of the first people that ever gave me edibles, and it absolutely was one of the first things that ever worked for me, and I was, like, in shock. Although I will say the first time I ate 4 of them, which was a really bad idea, because we were driving back to Richmond from DC, and I got really paranoid and like didn't want to have them on me. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just eat them all. So let me just eat them all.
Don't put them in the trunk, eat them.
Nope, I just got paranoid and ate them all. So I had like 4 of them, my very first experience, and we're like driving back, and I was so high that like I swear I thought I was on another planet.
You're a goddamn movie.
It was ridiculous. Shut up.
I ate them.
Yeah. So I did that, and then I would come up to DC, and I would usually spend like anywhere from like $80 to $100, you know, like coming up and like getting my stock, and like not like, it wasn't like saying that I was coming up and getting, what I'm about to say is not any reflection of Sweet Sensations, because her stuff is what got me high. When I started going other places and started getting things from people, and I would come up here and drop like $100 and then come home, and it would be really inconsistent. The dosing was always never 100% on what it was supposed to be. I could buy 2 cupcakes from the same person, have half, and it would affect me one way, have a half of the second muffin, and it affect me totally different. Like, it was just, there was a couple of times where we got things that like didn't do anything to me at all, and my cannabis experience was so limited that like there's no way that you could say that it was infused and didn't get me high. So I was like, fuck this, I'm just gonna make my own. And I had a friend who had celiac disease. This was before I got my diagnosis, and really wanted brownies, but couldn't ever buy edibles from people because everybody would always just do like regular brownies. So I had this brownie recipe from like Thanksgiving that me and like a friend had like done, and they were made with like oats instead of like oats ground into flour. So instead of flour, so I started making those, and I made them infused, and I was like, yo, these are like really delicious infused. And like none of my friends in Richmond had any kind of access to edibles at all. So I just became like the brownie girl, and people would go out of town and hit me up and be like, you know, they wanted a tray for their travels and whatever. And so brownies was definitely the first first way that I infused something.
Okay. What about like regular food?
So after I moved up here, I started with, let's see, the first savory thing I think that I did was baked spaghetti. It was really good too.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but I would usually do like a pasta a week. That was my thing. So I would do like mac and cheese one week, and then chicken Alfredo the next week, and then baked spaghetti the next week, all while simultaneously doing brownies and or cookies. So that was my thing until we made tincture. And then that sort of like changed the whole game for me completely.
Why?
Because
Did
I
you
was
do
still...
more?
So the thing is with edibles is that they worked really well, but the amount that I would have to consume for it to really affect the pain levels that I was in would make me mostly non-functional and just want to sleep. And so I couldn't really use them during the day, and so I was still taking a lot of opiates. Not as many as like at my peak, but I mean a lot is relative. You know, a lot compared to some people isn't that much, but I was taking like between 5 and 6 a day, which, you know, for me was a lot. I definitely would have withdrawal symptoms if I stopped taking them, and like it sucked. The side effects of them were horrible, but it was the only thing that allowed me to still be functional. So then we made tincture, and then it was like a whole new world open for me. And I made topical balm. So the first thing I did was make the topical balm, and then I made the tincture. That's how that worked. So, because I really wanted to get some, but nobody had any at the time. Like now, people have them.
Were you the first? I think you might have been the first. I encountered the first. Like,
I think I was the first that was like putting it out there, if that makes sense. So, you know what I mean? Like, other people might have had some. I know dispensaries had it, but nobody was really putting it out there. So I made mine. You can even, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you can even like go back and look at the very first time that I posted about it, because like I was super emotional because it was the first time that I had any kind of pain relief without being high. That was this really like amazing thing for me. And then we made tincture, and so, you know, for me, those are the two things that worked really well for me. But I know other people that it's just not what works for them. You know, there's some people that are in recovery and don't want to use anything with alcohol, even if the alcohol is evaporated off, which is totally fine. But if that's the case, then you know, smoking might be better for them. So, or edibles might be better for them. So, you know, it just varies person to person. So it's important to know your needs, make a list of what your needs are, what are you hoping to accomplish, and then think of other people as support systems instead of experts. Like, that's the way that I like to look at it.
I mean,
so like
if somebody has more experience in a field or a thing that I want to do, like you, that baked spaghetti, I would have never thought to do no shit like that.
Right,
like,
but
what?
like the thing is like you can appreciate somebody's skills, but not look at everything they say as law. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not perfect. I've, like, not always had 100% accurate information. Like, I mess up all the time. But, like, I own when I mess up. So that, you know, it's important to know your needs. So, recapping, know your needs.
Okay.
Treat people that are your people that you're getting cannabis from, people that you're getting advice on cannabis from. Treat them as somebody who should be part of your team and part of your support network, not as your doctor. And also, have a doctor that you see. If you don't like your doctor, find another one. Like, it can take a while, but having a good doctor on your treatment team, especially if you are struggling with a chronic illness, mental health problems, like, it really can change, like, how you view your illness. You know what I mean? And can really make you empowered to make better decisions. So, that's my advice on all of those things. If anybody has any questions, just leave them in the comments, and I'll come back and answer them later.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.